Okay, so if everybody remembers, a while back I modded a Splitstrike, and I didn't do much with it after that. Um, it's actually not a bad blaster. Um, it's just that I had a lot of other projects, a lot of other stuff going on, and it really isn't a blaster that can do your epic, bird of prey kind of power ranges, accuracy, potential. But it is an interesting blaster because it runs off of two independent plunger systems, and the hardware for the plunger and the catch actually aren't that bad. They're actually pretty good. There's one problem with the Splitstrike. Let me explain what it is. It's that the spring sizes that you need are unusual. They're not typical. And that there is a lot of potential for one of these, but you really have to tear it apart. The other problem is that, especially if you're shooting long range, and you really want that second follow-up shot to be like the first, this tends to move. Yes, it's only, look at it. It's only a degree, okay? In close quarters combat, you wouldn't care. But if you're really trying to bag somebody at 150 feet, yeah, it can shoot 150. I'd say that's about its long point is about 1 degree of arch at 150. Yeah, it can be used for that. But it just doesn't have enough, it's not secure enough to where one shot could follow up with the other shot, and that kind of disappointed me. The other thing another reason I stopped really using one was because you don't have a lot of room between here and here to put in a large plunger tube. And if I went singled on this, I'd have to take this whole AR assembly apart and put a coupler in right here, which isn't a big deal. However, it's a lot of work, and when you already got something that's very powerful, it's unnecessary work. You already got primaries. You already got a bird of prey as a primary. As a matter of fact, you got a bird of prey that can use a turret as a primary, where one barrel is singled and the other 3 barrels can be shotgun. Okay, so to me, I found that was a much better multi-barrel usage than a Splitstrike. However, I will tell you this right now, and there's a reason I made a video about it. The Splitstrike has not yet, I believe, 100% been utilized. Let me explain why. So if somebody else wants to go for this, go for it. Because, quite frankly, there is some potential. Okay, so you see the plunger tube of the Splitstrike. Okay, this is your spring housing here. This is your tube. This is your beginning of your AR assembly. That's a lot of space. Okay, that's a lot of space right there. I believe your plunger ends somewhere around here. And look what you have here. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow. I got almost, I would say, 3/4 of an inch of plunger. That, as you can see, bird of prey, one of the things that happens to increase its plunger volume is, in fact, the plunger gets moved forward and the plunger tube gets moved forward. Well, okay. Could you do the same thing on Splitstrike? You probably can. You can probably replace this tube. I wouldn't go with polycarb because polycarb would have to be thicker. Maybe a thin piece of polycarb or PETG. Maybe aluminum. And I would move it up to about here. Okay, so basically, look at this draw right here. All that could be yours. That's the thing about a Splitstrike. It's about that of a Night Finder, but it's much more robust. Your spring rest isn't going to break here because it's a cap. But, okay, here's the catch. Number one, you need to use a 7/8 diameter spring. Exactly 7/8. Luckily, Century Spring makes a spring like that. It's called a C882 springs. If you use 9 coils of a C882, you can fit it in there. But when it comes to the inner coil, not so easy, because you don't have the spring clearance that a lot have. Now, I can't use a RET version 1 like I can, let's say, in a Pink Crush. Oh, by the way, this is a full-length dart, 14 kilograms. Kind of stuck on me there. I haven't fired these in a while. Pretty powerful. I would say I'm probably doing 140, 150 feet per second. Yeah. The problem with that is because it's longer, and because you would probably modify it to be longer, you need a spring, that an inner spring, if you're going to run twin spring, that can run 2 coils and can have that much free length. So if you look at that free length there, you would need like a 5-inch spring. Well, okay, they don't really make a spring like that common to the Retaliator, and they don't really make a spring like that anywhere. Now, another thing you could do is you could remove the spring plate, buy you some more distance. That looks like about a 1/4 inch, but is that going to be enough for you? Probably not, and you would probably have to move the plunger forward. The way around this is really simple. You move the plunger forward, and then you use a number 62 Hillman and a C882, and at that point you are way up there in spring yield. You are, I would say, probably in the neighborhood of 30 some odd kilograms. Lots. Now, of course, there are other alternatives. You can put a 9 kilogram turf spring, Stampede spring on the outside, and then you can put a number 62, or even better, just throw a number 62 in there. That gives you about 16, 18 kilograms. That's great. Okay. But you have to do a lot of butchery, like what was done with the Bird of Prey. And without that possibility of throwing a long shot tube on there, I just don't see the point. I never did. But it could be done. This is a really underutilized blaster. I think it really can be pretty powerful. You have the geometry here all fits a really nice spring assembly. You can probably put a nice big piece of polycarb in front of your catch. Oh, and catch spring. Before I leave, catch spring. Okay. Here's the other part about the Splitstrike that really sucks. Okay. One is that you need springs that are kind of uncommon to do it. And if you do use a common spring like a 62 Hillman, you basically have to butcher it like a Bird of Prey to a star shot. Number 2 is the catch spring. The catch spring is about a 1/8 inch in diameter. It is tiny. Fortunately, what are the rules of springs? The tighter the diameter of the spring, the stronger the spring. The only way to get around that is less coils or really thick ass coils like this 20 kilogram turf spring right here. That was given to me by Mike of Turf Springs. Thank you very much. This is going in here. The Valkyrie is only running a 16 kilogram turf spring, and I mean only as in that's only like the best spring I've ever used in any blaster, and I love it. So I can't wait to see what the 20 does, because this thing's already approaching 300 feet per second with 16 kilograms. Okay, with 20, I'm sure I'm gonna epically cross it every fire. This one does it about every other fire. It does past 300, and then every other fire it does like 298 or 295. I want that 300 consistent, man. I want to be airgun velocity in single prime, and not only airgun velocity in single prime, a reasonable prime instead of running like 28 kilograms like I had before. So you need a 1/8 spring. Where I found the spring that I put in here came from a variety pack, ever built Home Depot spring pack. It's one of these little spring packs in there. You'll see these little 1/8 diameter springs. Yeah, that's what you throw in there. But it is tight. And the other thing is, these triggers, they tend to rock. You see how that rocks right there? Yeah, it doesn't go straight back perfectly, which means you might want to do a little bit of tailoring on this to make sure that this doesn't rock back, because when it rocks back, it doesn't engage the catch 100%. I had a problem with this. So this one works really, really fine. But for some reason, I had a problem with that one. And so you want to use a good catch spring, about 3 kilograms or so, that's wide. But I've only done it once, so, that's 8 millimeter, 1/8 of an inch wide and longer, but a few coils, like maybe 5 coils, 4 coils. But I only did it once. That's my whole problem. I did it once, So I never really perfected it. So if you want to go after the Splitstrike, those are my suggestions right there. to do with the Splitstrike, and I think you can probably get with 18 kilograms and with boring out the back of the plunger head so that you don't have those ribs on there. It's just flat. It just goes to the plunger head, and you move the whole thing up, and you use like a piece of aluminum or something to bring this tube all the way forward, and then put a coupler right here. I think you're talking about velocities that can get into the 200s. Yeah, it can be done. It's got the length already, but if you even give it more length, you have even more air. I think the barrel, barrel should be at that length should be about 6.5 inches. As if you're going the full length of the plunger, 6.5 inches. Here, I went with a barrel that was too short. If I looked at in retrospect with this plunger volume, I would have gone 6.5. But the fact that I was going 14K, I went with a shorter barrel assembly. So your barrel would be probably about here. You would lose this right here, and you would go coupler. That's my best suggestion. So if you want to go for it, knock yourself out. Until then, don't you go changing.